This is a production of Cornell University.
For having me on today. It's great to be here, and it's great to see a lot of familiar faces. I've been with Wyoming County Soil and Water for 10 years, like Jenny said. Full disclosure, in Wyoming County, through the funding programs, we've implemented one Cover+Flare system in Wyoming County so far, and that was back in 2017, and actually fortunate enough to work with all the people that have presented today on that project. So the soil and water aspect of this whole system is pretty much, we're kind of the middleman when it comes to it all. And we work between the farm and engineers and contractors and state committee for funding, kind of the go-between for it all. So as Dale and Jennifer Clifford mentioned, the whole basis where it begins is agricultural environmental management. It's a structured program here in New York State that allows us to work with farms to, inventory where they're currently at, as far as environmental management goes, see where they are, some of the strengths are on a farm, and other areas that maybe we can help them improve upon. It helps us plan with the farm what opportunities are out there for them to be better stewards of the land, as well as what they are doing good already. It's a process that allows us to constantly track where a farm is moving, and it's the baseline structure for when funding availability comes around. With these plans, AEM plans in place, it allows us to possibly, handpick the farms that possibly certain systems could work good for when funding does become available for these systems. So first thing that we try to consider with farms is, we're constantly doing agricultural environmental management with farms throughout the course of the year, 365 days. Always discussing different best management practices that farms could possibly implement. We always try to bring up Cover+Flare systems on particular farms, because it's really shown how much savings it can help with, not only financially for the farm, but also reducing methane release into the atmosphere, as well as clean water savings. So all those things come into play, as we're talking with farms about these different systems. But I will say that probably one of the biggest factors that you can't necessarily measure or calculate is the management structure of a farm. I know the goal is to have Cover+Flare systems on every single farm in New York State in a period of time, and possibly we will get there. But I will say that, some of the farms that we work with maybe don't have the management structure in place to implement a system like this. It's a relatively complex system that does require a high level of management when it's all said and done. That being said, there's great farms out there everywhere that I think could benefit from this system. So prior to applying for funding, we work with the farm, one, to figure out, hey, is this a system that would be worthwhile to your farm? Is it something you think you could handle? We help the farm to calculate how much methane these systems would eliminate, and how the farm possibly could track that. Help them calculate the gallons of rainwater saved from going into a manure storage. That all helps in the bottom line, not only for reducing the dilution of the nutrients in a manure storage, so that a farm would then later have to haul. It costs money to haul this manure, so all of it plays into the whole factor of everything. We talked with the farm about how the system could help increase the farm's resiliency. We here in New York State, Western New York, obviously we're in the snow belt. We get a lot of snow as well as a fair amount of precipitation throughout the spring, summer, and fall. Part of the factor that goes into that is, manure storages, when uncovered, do collect precipitation. So, should we get a heavy rain event and the farm hasn't been able to haul manure, there is freeboard built into every manure storage to allow for a certain size storm, but it can put certain situations. It can put farms on pins and needles because they possibly haven't been able to remove manure from their storage recently, and all of a sudden we get 3 inches of rain and they're constantly worried about their storage overtopping. Fortunately, it's just one of the natures of the beast when it comes to it. We also talked to the farm about what other component practices might be necessary to implement this system. As the other presenters have said, solid separation is key to this. You're not just throwing on a cover and flare and calling it good. You have to have a way to remove solids from the manure before it enters there, as well as water removal from the cover. There's various ways that have been discussed today as to how you can remove water and utilize that water. There's also very simple ways to remove it. We also worked with the farm to get them in contact with a professional engineer, because probably one of the biggest factors when it comes to applying for funding for a system like this is what is it going to cost. And we can help calculate for that for the farm. But a lot of those numbers will probably come from a professional engineer or other professional staff out there to determine that, because when it comes to funding, we've discussed the cost share rates. It's important for the farm to determine what cost share rate they are able or willing to contribute. These systems are not cheap, but at the same time, that there has to be some buy-in from the farm, and possibly that's the minimum 20% through the CRF program, or possibly it's 50-50. It's all things that we discussed with the farm prior to applying for the funding. So when a RFP is released, request for proposals is released for CRF or Ag Non-Point Source, we then begin to put everything together. There's significant documentation that needs to be put in place for all these programs. So we spent a lot of time doing that, and then all these projects across New York State anyways are ranked, and then the top ranked projects typically get funded. So we were fortunate enough on round 1 of the Climate Resilient Farming Program to get funded for Cover and Flare system. That particular system, as you can see here, it was a retrofitted earthen waste storage. So after we got news that the application was funded, it takes time for us to develop contracts between New York State Ag and Markets and the district, and then also between the district and the farm. So we then, after contracts are in place, we begin working with the farm and the professional engineer to develop final designs for the system. From there, there's a bid solicitation requirement with these grants, essentially trying to make sure that taxpayer money is getting utilized as best as it can. So we help the farm with bid development and solicitation. Once contractors are selected after that fact, we will set up a pre-construction meeting with all parties involved, and that's typically the engineer, the farm, contractors, the Soil and Water Conservation District, and possibly NRCS if they're involved, or anybody else for that matter that the farm or PE might think is necessary. Excuse me. So after construction begins, the district serves as, we provide construction inspection on these projects. This particular one, the engineer was not located, not super close by, so we assisted the engineer by conducting construction inspections of the project just to ensure that everything was being built to spec. And we document everything photographically typically, as well as keep a daily log of any progress that's been made. And all that's important because at the end, when the project is complete, some of this information is necessary for the closeout of the grant. So we also collect all of the bids because all that needs to be recorded, as well as invoices. Invoices received by the farm from the contractors. We collect copies of all those, as well as proof of payment to show that the contractors have been paid. At the end of all of that, once the project is built and complete, we also receive engineering certification. Essentially, the engineer signing off that the project is complete and meets standards and specifications. So after it's complete, again, we need to document all proof of payment and invoices, because that ties back into the cost share rate. It allows us to determine how much reimbursement the farm is going to get. If the project cost $1 million and they went 70% state funded and 30% landowner in kind, we can reimburse them for up to 70% of the incurred cost. We also, as part of the programs, be it Ag Non-Point Source or Climbers Land Farming, we have to develop a final report that is then sent off to Ag and Markets for final approval. Then we consistently are assessing the project to see what kind of setbacks there may have been, or areas of the project that were a big success. And that ties back into agricultural environmental management in the end. Part of AEM is reviewing projects that have been completed in the past to determine, okay, are they still functioning as they should be? Are there maintenance issues that need to be addressed? Things of that nature. And it's a constant learning process with all these projects. These cover and flare systems have been around for a little while now, but there's still learning curves that need to be made. So we're constantly working on that with the farm and with engineers to determine, hey, is there a better way that we can do this? The one farm that we've implemented a cover and flare system on, one of the unexpected outcomes that they've seen from it that really hasn't affected things too much for the farm, but they noticed an increase of birds, particularly seagulls. We like to spend time on top of the cover. It's probably a little bit of a heat source for them, so they've been dealing with a lot more bird species around the farm, I guess, due to that. So, kind of a nutshell, again, the Soil and Water Conservation District is kind of the go-between for a lot of the parties involved in these projects. And I will say that the one project that we implemented here in Wyoming County has been it's been a great success. The farm is very happy with it. It's been a highlight for us for some time now, and I'd like to do another one. So that's about all I have, Jenny.
Al, that was fantastic. I would like for you to do another one also. Can you just as one question, we are currently in February of 2021. Do you think, given time, somebody could apply February 2022 when round 7 of the CRF may or may not come out? Is that realistic?
You mean February of 2023?
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, I think that's very realistic. project that it's been, to be quite honest, the first one that we, and only one that we did. Here in Wyoming County, we had planned on, we hadn't had a whole lot of interest, I guess, in the area, and the farm that we implemented on came to us relatively, I don't want to say last minute, but in a very short time frame. And fortunately, we were successful in that application and completed it in a very short time frame. That being said, it was not the easiest to pull together in such a short time frame, but we did it. Moving forward, definitely a year would be much better for ironing out some of the issues with it and determining just what kind of things are going to be necessary for providing an application for funding. So,
well, Wyoming County now has you. Very skilled.
Exactly.
Jennifer, if I could add to that. If I could add to that, if the budget comes through the way it looks like they're proposing, there is going to be a very large increase of money for covers and flares on the next round in 2023. So we're going to need a lot more applicants.
Awesome. So Alex DePillis asked a question, but maybe it was from last, it's old. Thinking about the cost per gallon. Yeah, these are old questions. All right, I would like to open it up for anybody who has any last comments that they would like to make after hearing everybody else's presentation. I just want to give all of these wonderful speakers, first, just thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise and hard work. If anybody has any comments that they would like to add, please feel free. And thanks. Also, there's a poll out there, so if you could just share what you felt about this webinar, that would be great. And Alex DePillis has raised his hand. Alex, Jennifer, can you help me figure out how to get Alex to speak?
Check, Bricker19, let's see. Hi, so that wasn't an old question, and I'll just boil it down. Jennifer, this work is great that you did, turned me on to this thing with your wonderful paper, which I dropped into the questions there. But question is, it's 5 years later or whatever since you wrote that stuff, and thinking about costs per gallon of storage for cover and flare. What's a reasonable range these days? I mean, I'm trying to boil it all down to a number here.
Cost per gallon of storage. Oh, Alex.
Okay, whatever. That's okay. No problem.
I will say that the cost per greenhouse gas mitigation is between $9 and $14 per metric ton. And that for society is one of the lowest cost greenhouse gas mitigation strategies that we have. Besides the cost effective like feed efficiency and nitrogen use efficiency, which are just common sense reductions of greenhouse gases through efficiency. So I can't tell you on the cost per gallon offhand. Sorry.
10 years ago, it was 7 cents for ours.
Okay.
But it also depends on the depth of the storage. The deeper you are, the more gallons you have, and not just area size.
Okay. Dale, just in the future, can we ask to sort of think about the total finances on it, meaning the water hauling savings plus the bedding savings, et cetera, et cetera? Is that something that maybe we could scrounge up in order to think about the sort of whole farm financial plan of this?
I can put figures together on our farm.
Okay, I think that might be useful, right? Because there's all these co-benefits, and so it sort of counterbalances, the single sticker price. And just so everybody knows, the new CRF is giving an 80% cost share for this. Okay, Peter, do you have a
Jenny?
comment?
Just to chime in, I do think kind of the cost case study that also just briefly lists kind of the before and after of the equipment. I think developing ideally 2 or 3 of those would probably be super helpful for people. Every farm's different, but having some real examples, I think really makes it real for folks who haven't really delved into it.
Go ahead, Al.
Just for discussion's sake, I just ran some quick numbers. The farm that we implemented the project on here in Wyoming County, they had an existing earthen storage, but they had to build a separation house to, one, separate the solids from the effluent, as well as the cover and flare. The overall cost per gallon on that particular project was around 17 or 18 cents per gallon.
My cost was only the cover and flare that I gave you at 7 cents.
I muted myself. That was fantastic. I think we're going to close out this event. Thank you all for joining us that have managed to stay long. I know we went over, but I couldn't help myself, so that's my fault. But you could have dropped off anytime you wanted. But obviously, there's a lot of gas to be flared, and we did a great job today. So thank you so much for joining us.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.